Hello guys, welcome back again to another tutorial. My name is Dorothy. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you how to cut and sew this beautiful straight short dress with a kind of v-neck line and a trumpet sleeve. If this is something you're interested in, please watch this video to the end so you don't miss out on any detail or explanation. Now let's get started with the video. I got this beautiful fabric from a bill shop. I don't know if it's crepe or it's vintage material. Is there any difference between crepe and vintage material? Please let me know in the comment section. I used 1.5 yard for this tutorial. The length of this fabric is by 60, so it was enough to make the dress and also the sleeve. I got this feather that I will be using for the sleeve. It's called ostrich feather and I got it from a tailoring shop in the market. Now I'm going to take this fabric off camera and I'll cut out the portion that I'll be using for the front piece. This is what I have after I was done cutting out the portion that I'll be using for the front piece, and as you can see, this fabric is on fold. Now the measurement that I use in cutting out this front piece is the biggest body measurement. Okay, so since it's a long dress and it's a cut together dress, that means there is no half length. So my biggest body measurement here is the hip. So I simply divide my hip circumference by 4, then I added 2 inches sewing allowance to it. So that is how I cut this piece from the larger portion of fabric. Okay, I'm going to use my office pin to hold the fabric together so that it doesn't move when I'm drafting. This fabric is quite shaky, so if you get a fabric like this, please use office pin to hold it together so that it doesn't move. Okay, the length that I will be working with is 37 inches, and I added 1 inch hemming allowance, making it 38 inches. This top here is going to serve as the start line or the shoulder line. You can go ahead and roll a horizontal line to serve as the start line or shoulder line, but I'll be making use of it like this. So on this start line, I'm going to mark my neck width measurement, which is 3 inches. Then for the neck depth, I mark 3 inches as well. Now I'm going to use my chalk to connect these 2 points together to create a round neckline. This chalk is kind of faint, but I hope you all can see this. On this start line, I'm going to mark half of my shoulder measurement. My shoulder measurement is 15 inches. Divided by 2 is 7.5. So I mark 7.5 on the shoulder line like this. Then on this point I mark 7.5, I'm going to come down by 8 inches and I'm going to make a mark there. Now this 8 inches that I'm marking is going to serve as the armhole line. To get your armhole line, you simply divide your bust circumference by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Whatever figure that you have, that is your armhole line. Okay, I will use my ruler to connect these 2 points on a straight line. This straight line is going to serve as the armhole line, and I will also extend this line horizontally like this, and this horizontal line is going to serve as the chest line. On the armhole line, I will divide it into 2 and I'll mark the midpoint. On this midpoint, I'm going to come in by 1/2 inch and I'll make a mark there also. Then here on the chest line, I will divide my bust circumference by 4 and I'll mark it. Then I'm going to use my free hand to connect these 3 points that I have marked together to create the armhole curve. To slanten the shoulder on the armhole line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch and I'll make a mark there. Now I'm going to use my free hand to connect a slant line from this point that I came down by 1 inch to the neckline, just like this. Now let's mark the vertical point. So I'll place my tape rule on the start line like this and I'll come down by 10 inches for the bust length measurement. I mark that. Then from the start line to my waistline is 16 inches. I mark that. Leaving the tape rule on the start line like this, I'll come down by 24 inches for the hip line measurement. Then the length of the dress that I am working on is 37. Then I added 1 inch hemming allowance to it, making it a total of 38 inches. Now I'm going to connect all these points that I marked horizontally. Now to mark the body measurement, here on the bust line, I'm going to divide my round bust measurement by 4 and I'll mark it. My round bust measurement is 36. 36 divided by 4 is 9. I marked the 9 inches on the bust line, then I added 2 inches sewing allowance to it. This type of dress doesn't need a dart. It's supposed to be easy and free on the body. Okay, on the chest line, I added 2 inches sewing allowance to it as well. On the waistline, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to mark 1/4 of my round waist waist measurement. My waist measurement is 30 divided by 4 is 7.5, so I mark 7.5 on the waistline, then I add 2 inches sewing allowance to it. On the hip line, I'm going to divide my round hip measurement by 4 and I'll mark it. My round hip measurement is 40 divided by 4 is 10 inches, so I mark 10 inches on the hip line, then I add 2 inches sewing allowance to it. On the length of the dress, I mark quarter of my hip measurement, which is the 10 inches we mark on the hip line. I marked it here on the length. Then I add 2 inches sewing allowance to it as well. Now I'm going to use my chalk to connect all these points that I have marked together to form the body shape. Now let's cut this out. So guys, this is all for the drafting of the front piece. So the next thing we are going to do is to fold another fabric for the back pieces. So guys, this is it after cutting the portion that we'll be using for the back piece, and as you can see, this fabric is unfold. So the next I'm going to do is to pin the edges so that it doesn't move or shift when we are drafting. Like I said earlier, this fabric is quite shaky. The next thing I'm going to do is to place this front piece on the back piece just like this. Now I'm going to arrange these two pieces together. That is my front piece on the back piece, so that the front piece will sit perfectly on the back piece. For the back neckline, the neck width remained 3 inches, while for the neck depth, I came down by 1.5 inches and I'm making mark there. Now I'm going to use my chalk to connect these 2 points together to create a round neckline. And that's all for the back pieces. This dress doesn't need a zipper allowance, so that is why I didn't leave any zipper allowance at the back. And the front and the back pieces bodies are the same. The only difference is just the neckline. So now I'm going to use my scissors to cut this out, and we are basically done drafting the back and the front pieces. Okay, for the sleeve, I already cut out the portion of fabric that I'll be using for the sleeve, and the sleeve that we're working on is a trumpet sleeve. Guys, I'm so sorry for not cutting out this portion of fabric on camera. The fabric that I'm working on is large and the table I'm cutting this on is very small, so it cannot contain the fabric. The length of the sleeve we are working on is 22 inches. Then I added 1 inch for folding or hemming allowance, making it 23 inches. For the width of this fabric, I have 11 inches on fold. To draft the sleeve armhole, we have to measure the armhole on the dress. On the armhole line, I'm going to come down by 1/2 inch. This 1/2 inch is for joining the shoulder. Then I'll place my measuring tape and measure around the armhole just the way you see me doing. And what I have here is 10 inches. Okay, so the armhole that we are working on is 10 inches. Now I'm going to use my office pin to hold the edges so that it doesn't shift when we are drafting. Now I'm going to use my chalk and I'm going to draft the sleeve armhole just the way you see me doing. After drafting the armhole on the sleeve like this, I'm going to measure this around to check if we have the 10 inches that we are working with, and here is the 10 inches, so I mark that. On the start line, I'm going to come down by 8 inches for the round sleeve length measurement, and I mark that. On this line, I'm going to mark half of my round sleeve measurement. The round sleeve measurement is 13 inches divided by 2. I had 6.5, so I mark that. Then I add 2 inches sewing allowance to it. Now I'm going to use my chalk to connect all those points that I have marked like this. Then I will cut it out. This is what the sleeve looks like. Now I'm going to place this piece on another pieces of fabric to cut the second sleeve out. This is what I have after I was done cutting the second sleeve out. Now I'm going to keep this aside while we work on the bodies of the dress. I have those pieces here that I'll be using for the facing. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to place the front piece on it. Then I'll trace out the neckline, the shoulder, and the armhole. After cutting it out, this is what the facing looks like. Now I'm going to fold it into 2, then I'll arrange it properly, and I will use my chalk to give this facing a shape like this. After that, I'm going to use my scissors to cut it out. So here is our facing. I'm going to keep this aside while we work on the front piece neckline. On this front piece neckline, I'm going to come down by 4 inches and I'll make a mark there. Then on the neckline itself, I'll go in by 1/4 inch, that's 0.25 inch. Now I'm going to use my chalk to create a slant line like this. Then I will cut it out and I'll do the same thing to the facing also. So here is how our front neckline looks. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place the facing on each right side facing each other. Now I'll head over to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew just the way you see me directing. For the back neckline, I'm just going to use my bias tape to pipe the neckline. This is what I have after I was done sewing the facing on the front piece. The next thing we are going to do, we're going to use scissors to notch around the neckline so that when we turn this, it will sit properly. Now I'm going to turn this over to the right side and this is what it looks like after turning. And I'm going to take this over to the ironing table to iron it flat. And also the back pieces, I am done piping the neckline as well. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to place the back piece on the front piece like this, right side facing each other. Then I will join the back shoulder to the front shoulder and I'll use the facing on the front shoulder to cover up for the back, and I'll head over to the sewing machine to sew the shoulder. I'll do the same thing to the second side of the shoulder as well. I'll simply place the back shoulder and the front shoulder together. Then I'll use the facing of the front shoulder to cover up for the back shoulder like this. Then I'll head over to the sewing machine to stitch this. This is what I have after I was done fixing up the shoulder. You can see how neat this looks. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to fix up the sleeve. I will open up the dress armhole like this, just the way you see. For the sleeve, I've gone ahead to hem the length of the sleeve. Now I'm going to fold the sleeve into 2 to notch the midpoint. On this notched part of the sleeve, I'm going to place it on the shoulder of the dress. Now I'm going to use my pin to hold this together so that it stays in place, and I'm going to arrange my sleeve on the dress armhole just the way you see me doing, and I'll use pin to hold it together. After I was done pinning the bust sleeve together, I'm going to head over to the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch this. Then when I'm done stitching, I'm going to arrange the side of the sleeve like this, and also I will arrange the side of the dress just the way you see me doing. Then I will go over and sew the side by the sewing allowance that I left. You can as well mark your body measurements if you're not sure of the allowance that you left. This is what I have after I was done joining the side of the sleeve all the way down to the length of the dress. I trim off the excess allowance on the side of the dress so that it can give it more neater finishing. I've also gone ahead to hem the length of the dress and fix the ostrich feather on the sleeve. So we are basically done with this tutorial. If this tutorial was helpful, why not give this video a thumbs up? And if you have any question concerning this tutorial, leave your question in the comment section and I will respond to it. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do well to subscribe and join the community. For now, bye. See you all in my next video.